Okay guys, tonight I am working on this 2006 BMW 750. The customer's complaint is that it's got a check engine light and it runs rough. And also, one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you guys along is to see if we could find out what the issue is, because this vehicle was in last week for an ignition coil number 5 misfire. It was a hard fault, a current fault. Number 5 was just not contributing, and it was simply just a coil. Put it in, test drove it, went around the block, and it was good. So the vehicle came back this week again with similar complaints. So I kind of, in a way, am also making it to be able to explain and show you guys that obviously most of us in the field understand and know many things can contribute to similar symptom feeling situations. So he's complaining sort of similar symptoms that he's feeling. To the customer, of course, is going to see check engine light and feel the way that it runs. As far as what the trouble codes that this vehicle currently has or came in with, after I cleared everything last week from the cylinder 5 misfire, is it's got a mass airflow code and then two, let's call them trim codes. We're dealing with, obviously not a misfire situation, but we're dealing with either fueling or air problem that's making the vehicle not run right. I think for me right now, just because we are seeing this, I don't want to start with the trim ones, because obviously if the mass airflow is not correct, our trim is not going to be correct. So I want to chase that one, and in doing so, I'll show you how the car runs when you first start it. It is a rough idle and situation like that. And I don't know exactly where I'm going with this. Haven't tested one for a bad mass airflow, which obviously that's going to be the quick, easy, quote-unquote call from a trouble code, shoot from the hip, silver bullet situation. But what I want to do is just gather some data and information, because I know I have a known good sensor from a vehicle outside that runs good. And so what I want to see is capture the signal data, compare that to the known good sensor in the same state. So basically a cold start. So I'm going to start it, let it run rough, capture some data, shut it off quick to not warm up the engine so much. I want it to be in that same kind of state for a first startup, and at that point I'll switch over to the other sensor, and then I'm going to compare the two signal lines, see if I see anything different to be able to confirm if it truly is going to be a simple quote-unquote sensor. I am synced to ignition 1, not for any particular reason. There's nothing really to sync with that. I just want to have a reference point for engine cycling, and that's why I'm synced on 1, and obviously the signal wire here. Okay, I have the scope running. I'll do a first startup and let you see what it runs like at the same time as I'm capturing the data. Okay, so there's that capture that I just took. So red is the mass airflow signal, and then blue is the ignition. And I've created MAF channels off of the frequency of the mass airflow, and I will show you what that looks like. Now, there's two on there right now. There's one in purple, which I scaled differently than the black one. But first and foremost, this isn't 100% what I am used to seeing. I've done the previous Diag where I showed the frequency of the mass airflow in another BMW, and it was more of a consistent signal. But either way, this is what I captured on the cold start. I don't know what I'm supposed to get, but this is what this original sensor is giving us. Now, originally I made the one in the black, and I've got the scales different for the black, and then basically I just amplified the purple one. So I lowered the scaling so that the humps look more prominent. But this is as far as the signals that I'm getting. This is what it is, just for an idea on the range. Again, like I said, even though they're visually looking different, this is just a blown up version of the black one, and so their scaling is pretty close, or it should be pretty much the same. So that is what I'm getting. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but this is all I know with the original sensor, and so I'll do the same exact thing with the known good sensor. Okay, so I've got the mass airflow sensor removed. There's really nothing that stands out, just as far as circuitry or whatever, other than that obvious possible resistor there. But even that, nothing too crazy. And the what I have here is a known good from the vehicle that I know runs well. And again, nothing really to look at to try to determine anything. So I'll install this and try to do same capture. Now I've let the vehicle sit for a little bit to try to get another cold start. Okay, new one's installed, plugged in. We'll get the scope running and see what that looks like. Almost sounded like no difference, as you can even hear that it popped, which the last sensor would also do that. So we'll take a look at the scope, see what that looks like. Okay, so this is that capture. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, but I just didn't, or I forgot to, but I knew to try to mention, is that the way that it was possibly going to start, to not be too concerned. Now, we physically, and I know I stated almost sound like it didn't make a difference, but that was kind of what I was meaning to hint towards, that not be too concerned with that first initial start run. And I actually even started it quickly, meaning get in right away, hit the brake, hit the start button, instead of keying it up, let it on key on, recognize itself, kind of like a quick calibration deal or anything. I wanted to start it the same quick way as I was doing it with the other sensor. And so again, I'm trying to hint at, yes, we heard it pop and this, that, but actually even almost a bigger rough running situation, or because of the pop and this and that. But you got to remember the state that the memory of the DME is in, or has been, or has been trimming at. And if it's going to try to start again, a cold start with that last memory of how it's been running with that, let's call it different signal, and now we're giving it a different signal with this second sensor, yes, we can possibly physically get it to run rough, but eventually, if it is a better working known good signal or whatnot, it's gonna work itself out eventually, unless we force learn it by clearing and resetting adaptations. So I wanted to get that out of the way. The second thing, this is that capture. Let's take away the red and blue. And I've not adjusted or played around with the same two settings from the previous sensor. And just off the bat, we clearly see a difference. It is totally different. Now, not exactly what I was expecting. I haven't done one of these yet. I have done one on the newer versions, and I caught, it looks like what seemed to be a better frequent signal. But for right now, the fact that I'm seeing night and day, black and white, a difference from before and after, is enough for me to at least continue forward with this sensor. Now, I've got some time with this vehicle and the other vehicle as well, so because I'm seeing this totally different signal, and we'll get details on it, I am going to go ahead, leave this one installed. I'm going to properly reset and adaptations, any of the trims, and drive it from there to see if it stays well as far as physical symptoms that we're feeling, can feel, and as far as DTCs coming back. The purple channel had the lower setting of the other two, and that naturally here is maxed out because we know the black was at the higher at the 800, and that here is maxed out as well. We were getting nowhere near any of these two levels maxing out before. We know we are physically, literally getting a whole different signal from almost not flatline, but hanging in the lower levels. Again, I might try to fine tune the signal, but for me, in a quick format, this is enough evidence to, like I said, leave it in there, drive it, and see what it does. Okay, so we are in the vehicle, we are connected, back with the scanner, and we'll pull that. We'll read the codes again before we clear them. And interesting, you can see the mass airflow has now switched to an absent state. So not sure if it has recognized it that quick, but very possible, being again that signal is totally different in frequency of reporting, is that much different. Probably wouldn't be surprised that it sees it that maybe it's a better state and more happy, and so maybe switch that to not current. Obviously these are still there because you need some, for any type of trim, mixture, vacuum leaks, any of that, you need some driving. So let's get rid of these. Okay, we'll actually cycle the key. While I do that, I will go to service to do a reset. So powertrain, engine, and we're going to go in there. Okay, we'll turn it back on. Okay, so reset. Okay, all reset. We'll follow these prompts and then we'll get started. Now, just one thing that I quickly wanted to point out, because I noticed as I was cycling the key and clearing the codes, because I had the scope running because of curiosity, and so I wanted to show you this. Okay, so I'll zoom in here. And there you go. We have a pulsing signal. Now this is, again, not going to tell us anything other than there's some sort of signal there. But within this pulse signal, in the frequency mode, is what the computer is going to take in and analyze it and make a determination. So that is why, and I'll show you, so now based off of that trace there of the engine not running, not breathing, not pulling air, not moving air past the sensor that picks up the movement of air, look at the, so here is that black channel and then the purple MAF channel. Both are maxed out on their scaling to basically, let's just call it an on position with no flow, no movement. They're just flatlined. And so this is why, again, I am using the MAF channel for true kind of background, call it secret signal, whatever, of just visually verifying air movement signal that the computer is going to read and interpret. And so I'm going to do the first startup after the DME adaptation reset. And even at that point, I still would expect it to run kind of funky. Even in normal situations, sometimes the service information will describe to you to almost expect a rough running situation for I think up to 2 minutes or whatnot. So I'm going to start it, let it run, finally get warmed up, and then go with this new sensor, put some miles on it. So you can hear hopefully that engine idle tone change. So I'm finally letting it run for a decent amount of time. And just to show you quick, in the car, I'm still connected, reran it. Obviously, currently we're not going to have any faults. But I will, again, like I said, I'll put some miles on it. Not sure if there's much more to show other than a no code situation if it stays this way after a few miles. Well, I kind of lied to you. I got this little bit more to show you. Again, after trying to let it warm up, I decided to pull the MAF channel just at randomly, and you can tell that the purple is maxed out, and so was the black. The black was already the higher of the two, so I went ahead, modified the black to a way higher scale, and I'm finally picking up a little bit more of what I'm used to. As you can tell, we're getting some movement there, and so let's take a look here. We are getting some different, better, more signals that I'm more used to seeing with the mass airflow on this Beamer deal. So again, looks like possibly the other sensor could not create a signal that rose up to a satisfactory level and then scale from there. Again, it was just hanging near zero. Now that it's running with this sensor, it rose all the way up to a crazy higher level, and from there it's doing its thing. So I hope this takes care of that. Obviously we have, again, I keep reiterating, there's a difference between one sensor and the other, so I'm going to put some miles on this one. As I'm letting the idle warm up, I don't know, because remember we had them trim codes also. Now I'm trying to differentiate. There's a little bit of a high squeal. Not sure if picking it up, and I'm not sure if I'm hearing something. Obviously I'm trying to see if we have the diaphragms. There's one here and one here. If one of them is also torn, causing that noise, but most of the time that'll create the lean mixture codes and or have a lot of suction in here, which crudely I can just check. There we go. All right, so two problems going on. I'm gonna open this guy up, actually both diaphragms, and see, but just for verification I might throw the crankcase measurement just to show before and after. Okay, so I'm set up to take a crankcase pressure measurement, and I've shown this in other videos as well, but in case you haven't seen it, this is how I take the reading. Tapped into the crankcase through the oil cap with a just homemade adapter deal, and then I am in graphing with digital signal there. So again, like in the past, this is the scaling that I go by for BMW's factory spec that they give us, and we have an N62, and this is going to be the TU, so it's I think technically updated, and so we are looking at about 1.18 inches of this is inches of mercury. So we'll start it, we'll run it, see if we get that whining noise again, but even at that point it should be faulted and not fully within spec. Now if there's a leak, that means the crankcase is not sealed, so that reading should be less than that 118. And sure enough, it is not able to reach that level. You can kind of hear that again. And so we are not pulling enough vacuum because it's not sealing, because there's a leak, most likely a tear, and then so our level is not as high, and that too can create drivability problems. That is very, very common on this engine. The diaphragms for the crankcase vent valves tearing, causing a leak, fuel trim problems. So most of the time that's a lean mixture code. So I don't know if it was masked and or confused from a combination of the faulty mass airflow, incorrect reading, with a non-sealed crankcase, which could cause or should cause a lean situation. So still holding at that point. Two different situations after, let's call it the third of the bad coil on number 5. Who knows, maybe bad luck, or things just happen to tear up at this point, but we are here to verify things and get data that can prove, and let's not call bail us out. Let's not call bail us out, but they cover our behinds on this to be able to stand ground if you're trying to make a diagnosis or prove a point or defend a point. Okay, so just to show you, so I got the smoke machine, which typically with any trim fault, this is where I naturally go for. But again, having to look at mass airflow, I'm going this route. But normally, so I'll seal up the intake boot, I'll feed into the crankcase, and then I'll look for smoke. Don't mind that, that's obviously that fitting. But to my surprise, not the diaphragms, if you can see, smoke there in the rear. As far as where it's coming from, so it looks like this sensor here you can even tell audibly the sound. So I'm gonna have to take care of that, and then our trim codes and howling, because again it's not sealed, it's howling through air flowing where it doesn't need to be. We need to seal up the crankcase. Okay, so I've replaced that gasket for the Valvetronic sensor, and I am re-smoke testing it to verify, make sure it is sealed. So I'm gonna let this run for a little bit and hopefully no more leaks. Well, now that looks like the driver's side bank 2 is sealed, we now get to see another area which is actually the same gasket, but now on bank 1 that it's showing its ugly face. So I will do that one next and hopefully get rid of that. Okay, so I've got the vehicle all put back together, completed, and I drove it. I didn't get to drive it as much as I wanted to, and also you must forgive me for not showing the smoke test after the second bank sensor gasket was replaced. It was just getting a little bit too late and a little bit frustrating after seeing that second one when didn't see it the first time, so on and so forth. But that's why I quickly, after I got it all done, I thought it was easier to show and with proof of the crankcase running pressure measurement that came up more close to what it should be running at as per the spec that we have from BMW. That was another portion that or another value that did change after making repairs. So in closing, I guess, for this is just the way that I chose to do it and look at it and go about it. I started with the mass airflow signal, knowing that I could capture that and duplicate that same start with a known good sensor. And so I wanted to capture back-to-back hardcore direct signal as to what the computer is going to see and make the determination of a trouble code and running condition off of. I know that by capturing that signal, I can create and run a math channel that basically gives us the decrypted message of airflow to the DME. And so that becomes a measurable value that I can capture and create and see on the scope. It's undeniable. You can't, it's not substituted value on the scanner that can throw you off and wasting time trying to read measurements and so on and so forth on the scanner and not know if it's right or wrong. For me, this was just the most accurate and quickest way to do it. And then second, after verifying that, just off of experience, kind of hearing that pitch noise and finding out that there is truly a crankcase breathing issue, meaning a sort of leak going on, and finding that, and then that too for me is another measurable thing that we can look at before and after, and then knowing that the spec came up closer to what it needs to be after fixing those two leaks, you know that the car is going to be good. It's undeniable. It's within spec. The car's going to be happy. No more trouble codes are going to arise from the running condition. So that's pretty much it. Not much more. The car is fixed, and again, this helps verify to differentiate last week's problem from this week's problem. This is a way to prove out that even though, yes, the symptom, which is what you're gonna feel, is similar, it's not due to the same thing. And that's just what another thing trying to drive home to you guys is to approach with the way that you can verify with an undeniable doubt by presenting all this information with that the scope helps you capture. So enough blabbering. Customer will get this car back running good. No more issues, at least for now. Yes, it is a BMW, so I'll probably see it next week. But again, thank you for watching. I hope it helps you, some of you guys out there that are having troubles diagnosing some of these, and you gather some techniques. And we are actually heading out to go to Super Saturday, so I'm trying to get this completed, done, and back to the customer, and possibly a video also put up before we head out. So some of you guys are going out there. Maybe we'll see you. If not, stay on top of training, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.